Everyone to our live stream here. It's a short stream. We have a half stream this week being due to daylight savings time messing with my schedule, but we're still going to do an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes dedicated to Mikhail Chigorin. Our weekly poll, we had Chigorin as the winner yesterday, and I was happy to see that. Very interesting player, father of the Russian School of Chess. Whether he likes it or not, I don't think he ever knew what an influence he would play, but interesting player. Chigorin was born in 1850, I think. He was one of the first great Russian chess masters. Perhaps not the very first. Strong known player, but we have many great games. Chigorin played for the World Championship against Steinitz. He was living from, I think, 1850 to 1909, something like that. If I'm not mistaken. 1908, I think. But he was interesting because he started chess at a late age, like 18. Welcome everybody to my stream. We're featuring, three or four games here by Mikhail Chigorin, father of the Soviet School of Chess. Not really. This is before the Soviet Union, but we have one of the strongest Russian masters of all time. Massively influential. He had an interesting style. He was regarded as unique because he really seemed to excel with the use of knights. Sometimes he would trade off the bishops for knights in positions other players would think it was inappropriate. He seemed to favor playing with the knights in closed positions very strongly. Modern players' take on him, I know that Spassky was a big fan of Chigorin, and he regarded him, he was like a connoisseur of Chigorin's games, which is rare, I think, among modern world champions. So you might see a little bit of an influence in Spassky's games from Chigorin. Let's take a look at the first game here. Welcome Asterbait Virat Carlson. Welcome everyone to my stream. International Master William Pascal, based in Budapest, Hungary. We're dedicating Wednesdays to learning and retro master game analysis. So every week we choose together a different famous player, go over some of their games. Unfortunately, we got a short stream today, just an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. Usually I do 2.5 hours. So we're just half a stream. Snuggles the Snail, welcome. We can learn something here. So Chigorin playing black, he was, let's see, this first game was against Pillsbury, who had a very short chess career. We already saw the games of Harry Pillsbury in an earlier episode. Pillsbury died at a very young age. He had a very short career. He was from Somerville, Massachusetts. The greatest player from New England, maybe of all time. But we've got Pillsbury playing against Chigorin in St. Petersburg, it's just automatic. 1895 to 96. D4, Pillsbury is white, and it's rare at that time. I mean, I think that Pillsbury was one of the players who was playing D4 at a very early stage. I mean, primarily most games played even in the end of the 1800s were E4 games. So it was rare to see a top player who specialized in D4 the way that Pillsbury did. We've got D4 and Chigorin with a classical response, D5, establishing the center. In those days, people did play knight F6, but it was less common, so-called Indian defenses. More of a modern thing. I think that Nimzovich, coming along around this time, would do a lot to propagate knight F6. Alright, D4, D5, C4. Now knight to C6. This is one of Chigorin's greatest, let's say, I don't know, gifts to the chess world. The idea of playing knight to C6. Generally speaking, this is incorrect from a strategic standpoint, I think. Most of the time in the queen pawn games, we want to make sure we don't obstruct our c pawn from playing to influence the center. The same thing could be said if white tries to play the Veresov. You're blocking your c pawn, and without the ability to play e4 or c4, it's very hard for white to influence the center properly with the pawns. We can only use pieces, and we're not able to get the pawns into the battle for the center. So, if someone says to you the Chigorin's defense is dubious, perhaps it is. Perhaps it is slightly, but it's good enough to just about be playable without being outright dubious. But I think it's not as good as many mainstream openings. I mean, I don't mean to bash Chigorin here on his day, but the main moves are the main moves for a reason. E6 and C6 support the strong point on D5. Anyway, we see an exceptional player. He's bringing the knight out early. White has many continuations here. CD, knight F3, knight C3, E3, but this is probably the most direct, trying to destroy the center immediately. I prefer knight C3. Anyway, this is not a discussion of the opening. I want to show you this game, Pillsbury versus Chigorin. So, this is probably the least testing of the main lines. Knight F3 doesn't really put that much pressure on black. You're not destroying his center, and you're not increasing direct pressure against D5. By playing knight F3, you're just simply developing a piece, but it gives black a lot of freedom to do whatever he wants, and this is an important move, like bishop outside to G4, getting it outside so he can play E6 and establish a solid pawn chain finally. I think the knight F3 puts the least pressure on black. Now, main line in this position, I believe, I'm going to turn off this opening explorer because it's just silly. Main line move here for, can I turn you off? Yes. The main line move for white is probably knight C3. Oh, and by the way, somewhere I read that Kasparov maintained that, it's an interesting concept, Kasparov maintained that Chigorin was kind of like a earlier version of Alyakin. They have some similarity stylistically. I mean, in a way, you can see that here. The way he wants to aggressively play with the pieces in the opening, they're just popping out to the maximal aggressive squares right away. This is also something that Alyakin would appreciate. Of course, he probably influenced Alyakin's play. Being from Russia, he was probably more influential than most over Russian players. Bishop G4, C takes D5. This is unusual in today's theory. I don't see this move played very often. And the problem is, if we take with the queen, bang, knight C3 and white is fine. So bishop takes F3. And now we'll transpose perhaps to a different variation. After bishop takes F3, I think pawn takes G3, queen takes D5, E3, and then we'll transpose to an E3 variation. After E5, knight C3, bishop B4. And this is very standard. Bishop D2. We can see the games of Rapport even recently. Morozevich before him. One of the main lines of the Chigorin amongst top players. Bishop takes C3. This is a very common variation. Nakamura, Rapport, and again, as I said, Moro played a lot of games. I mean, Morozevich, if we're talking about modern players, clearly influenced by Chigorin. Forget about Spassky. Let's just say Morozevich. But, okay. White doesn't play that. Bishop takes F3. He plays pawn takes C6. Now, this is a little bit radical. He allows Chigorin to keep his bishop and come back to C6. Now, Pillsbury wasn't a fool. He's a strong player. He understood what he was doing here. His idea is to establish the strong pawn center now with E4. But does anybody understand why this isn't, maybe isn't as good as it could be? for white. I think the defining thing is here the exchange of pieces. When you have a space advantage, why is this ability to play from the center not that great? That was Twitch. No trolling today, troll. This is a serious stream. Welcome everybody to the stream. International Master William Pascal. We're giving a class here on Chigorin. Short stream, 1 hour and 15 minutes. Half a stream, basically. So stay tuned and pay attention. We don't have that much time. I think the thing is the piece exchange. One set of pieces is off the board. Even if white was able to establish a center here, he's not going to have as effective a space advantage as he would if there was no pieces exchanged. Knight c3 looks okay. And there's nothing really drastic that black can do. I mean, you would expect black to play knight f6 in this position. I think the issue is white has f3. And now what do we do? I think still black is probably only slightly worse here, but it's not great. e6, e4, and then I don't know where to put my bishop, but I don't really have that great a game with that powerful center on d4 and e4. So check out what Chigorin does. He plays e6, e4, and then this is kind of hyper modern, I would say. This is really, now, in a way, it's almost like he's playing something like the English defense, like a forerunner of the English defense, with like b6, bishop b4, e6. Because bishop b4, what we see here is actually Chigorin demonstrating hypermodernism before Nimzovich did. And when was this? Okay, Nimzovich was just getting started in chess probably around this time. But what is this? This is hypermodernism. We have no pawn center, and we have the bishop here and the queen here, and the pieces are influencing the center without actually having a center. So when you hear about hypermodernism, you don't normally hear like Chigorin, but here that's what it is. He's able to influence the center without actually having a pawn center. f3. And now what does black do? Routine move, knight f6. Now he actually doesn't have enough pressure if he plays knight f6 or knight e7. He's just slightly worse. So check it out. f5. I mean, this is a creative move. He's not biased blindly by the fact that he has a weakness on e6. It maybe can be attacked by queen b3. It's not an open file, so it's hard to attack it, but his striving for the control of the center, spoken like a true native English speaker. Yes, it reminds us of the English defense. Exactly, Tezek. It's an early example of hypermodernism. I have a book right here, a really good book. What is it? If you guys want a good book, it's Lipnitsky, okay? Isaac Lipnitsky wrote a book about chess theory. Very famous Russian book. And this is one of the games that he puts in like the first chapter of the book. This is first chapter chess strategy. Modern understanding of the center, essentially. This is the beginning of modern chess, is what I'm trying to say. People always associate Nimzovich, but here we've got Chigorin modernizing chess. Now, white should keep the tension somehow, I guess, but how? You know, maybe something like queen d3, but you've got a problem with queen h4 check. This is the issue. You know, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, bishop takes, pawn takes, and you can't just keep your pawn, check, and this is falling. But I mean, seriously, maybe this is better than what happened in the game. Maybe you need to sacrifice a pawn or something. Seriously. But this diagonal is going to get chopped up. For example, g3, queen e4, bishop takes, rook g1. I mean, I could see like probably white would have some compensation for the pawn here. he would probably survive with a draw if he's lucky. But he didn't foresee that. Instead, he plays e5, leaving this pawn backward on the d file. Now the black pieces have places to go. Knight e7, knight d5. There's a huge hole on d5. It's ugly to play e5. Knight e7. Black is slightly better. I mean, you've got queen d7, rook d8, or castles queenside. Pressure on the d4 pawn. This bishop can fall back to b6 and pressurize d4. So now Pillsbury played a3, but I mean, I would suspect a3 may be overrated, but we'll check it out. I mean, ultimately, we're making more pawn moves, and Pillsbury's play is kind of like a textbook example of overextending yourself rather than a brilliancy prize game for white. I'm not sure if he should even play a3 here objectively. After bishop a5, perhaps he thought his bishop has, a diagonal back to a2. Maybe a3 is not that bad. Slightly weakens the structure. What's up, Bijak? So bishop c4, bishop d5. See, here's another amazing move. Most of us would play knight to d5 because we feel like our knight is cramped. But Chigorin wants to get rid of the bad piece. Get rid of that bad bishop on c6 that's blocked in. And now Pillsbury got fancy. Queen a4 check. c6. This is defended. And now the queen is on a bad square. Misplaced. Interesting decision now. Bishop d3. And I don't mind this move from white's perspective because it makes some sense. All the black's pieces are cluttered trying to use the d5 square. So white's space advantage is still significant here. This is where Chigorin goes beyond the average player to find kind of a brilliancy. Queen b6. So he's not just playing strategically, but he has awesome tactics here as well. So if b4, we have queen takes d4, attacking everything. Needless to say, white pays the price for all of his pawn moves. His whole position is essentially a vacuum. There's no b4 in this position. Now he plays bishop c2. I mean, there's a problem here, Houston. What are we going to do? Does anybody have a suggestion of what white should play in this position? It's a problem. I mean, it's kind of a funny position. I mean, nothing is actually hanging. This isn't hanging. This isn't hanging. It's just like, what's he going to do? Castle? Castles is the most logical move, right? There's no problem. No, there's like no move for white. I mean, this is the major issue. He's trapping the queen with bishop e3. Yeah, no, he's threatening to trap the queen. I'm just testing you. This is stopping. This is the main problem, You can't play b4 and your queen's getting trapped. But the guy never should have put his queen on a4. I mean, seriously. This is a really, really bad move. You don't put your queen on a4 for no reason. John Bartholomew. Queen a4, c6, bishop d3, queen b6, bishop c2. And now he's overextended and he's lost. Queen a6. You're not castling. Check it out. b5 traps the queen again. It's pretty crafty. So Pillsbury defends. Bishop d1. And now there's no immediate, really obvious move for black here. Bishop c4. Making way for this guy, or girl, whatever it is. the knight on e7 to get into the game. And also, we now have the possibility of rook d8 or castle's queenside with pressure on the d4 pawn. f4. Because just what white needed was more pawn moves in this position. Castle's queenside. This is such an aesthetic position. Bishop e3, knight d5. And now the d4 pawn again. No one to protect it. But black is playing like, this is 1895. Black is playing hypermodern chess, you know. Essentially, this is the birth of hypermodernism. He's just got his opponent to overextend all of his pawns. And now knight b6. And clink. White just lost a pawn. And now the other rook's coming in. I mean, this is terrible. So the only problem for black here is the queen a little awkwardly placed at a6. But he has such good control of the position, it really doesn't matter. I mean, you can never play b4. I'm just taking this. Really, I mean, the queen is essentially safe. It's just not very mobile on a6. Rook c1, bishop d3, queen b3, and now knight c4. The striking thing about black's play is the coordination of the pieces. It does look like Stockfish is playing black. The amazing thing is that this is from 125 years ago. A human playing 125 years ago. White to play. He's just getting annihilated. I mean, black is starting knight takes d2, and then it's unbelievable. White was an amazingly strong player. I mean, this is like one of the only games that Pillsbury lost in this tournament. Rook e4 doesn't work. No. He just takes. But this was like a desperate try now. He gives him the bishop. White takes on e6 with check. Just moves away. White is just lost. You want to take the knight? And then play rook e4 check? I guess it doesn't do that much. You know, the king will be safe on f2. You can check him, but that's it. I'm not sure which way white takes back. Well, this would drop the f pawn. No, but I mean, e6 is hanging at the end of the day. Yeah, this is a little interesting. Bishop takes, check. Here, king f2, rook takes, check, king g3. But at the end of the day, our pawn is hanging on e6. We really don't want to give up that dark square control, I think. Dark square bishop. Although it does look funny on a5, we may have to take on c3 soon. Knight c4 was a good move. And then takes. Queen e6, king b8, and white is just down a piece. There's really nothing else to see here. King g3 only square, and then he just simplifies. And he's just up a piece against a world-class player. Bishop c4, queen f5, bishop c3, rook d2. It's just a matter of technique now. This is not really... I know this is important to acerbate, but the game itself does not hinge on this aspect of the game. Check. He's trying to avoid losing his queen to rook g8 check. And so the king wanders out to e6, where it likely will get checkmated. It's just a matter of time. Alright, but anyway, that was a very influential game. Let's go to the next one. This is Chigorin with black against Gunsberg. Isidore Gunsberg. So, the other opening that Chigorin is known for, of course, is Chigorin variation of the Roy Lopez. After bishop e5, a6, you know, in the main line of the Roy Lopez, after bishop a4, knight f6, castles, bishop e7, rook e1, b5, bishop e3, castles, of course, c3, d6, h3, knight a5 is Chigorin's. This is Chigorin's biggest, I would say, contribution to modern opening theory. In a way, it's more relevant than Chigorin defense to d4 because it's better. Knight a5 is actually a move that kind of, again, like, is very modern. Players were reticent, of course, classical trained players were reticent, put the knight on the side of the board. So this is radical. Routine classical players were taught not to put the knight on the side of the board. Chigorin is willing to do it. And this is like the main line even today. Although I will say that this went through a period in the 80s and 90s where it wasn't popular. The Chigorin defense has come back. But in this game we have a6, bishop a4, knight f6, and Günzburg just plays d3. So he must have known about the Marshall Gambit or something. It's like Günzburg was avoiding the Marshall Gambit back in 1895. All right, d3. It's a move. It's safe. It's solid, but not as critical as many other sharper lines, of course, based on castles. But again, even today we have 2021 players who are avoiding the Marshall playing d3. Peter Spidler. All right, let's take a look. d3 and now d6, and actually Chigorin plays this in like the best possible way. I think this is absolutely standard. d6, strong pointing e5, c3, and now g6. Do you guys understand why g6 is good? I mean, I think that the easy explanation is, well, we'll get a setup like the King's Indian. Our king side is safer because the bishop's on g7. But I mean, truthfully, if you think about coordination, how the pieces coordinate without getting each other's way, I think you look at this position and you say, well, why not just bishop e7? Because later on, you're going to have more space for your pieces to move around. These pieces are already obstructing each other on e7 and d8. It's like the old Indian versus the King's Indian. It really does become like a King's Indian. I mean, the thing is, in the King's Indian, white plays c4. So it's slightly different, but for black's perspective, it's the same thing. g6, knight on bd2, bishop g7, and now Steinitz played this way with white. A lot of great players did. Chigorin himself probably played games. Actually, I think Chigorin has another game with the white pieces where he played a very ingenious game similarly to Günzburg here that is not on my list for today. Knight f1. I always attribute this to Steinitz, but I'm not sure like which player first used this idea of playing knight f1 prior to castling. See, the problem is if we castle, then we have to play rook e1, then we have to play knight there, and if we maybe want our rook on the f-file later on, that will be a problem. So by playing knight f1 first, we could actually move the knight through and then castle, and then have the rook on the file, on the f-file, without having to move it to e1. Castles, and now h3. I think this move is not really necessary for white. I mean, I've seen some crazy games where white plays like a caveman with h4. But I'm not sure objectively what the best move is. Probably something sane. I don't know. Queen e2 looks like a good idea. White can castle on either side, believe it or not. I don't really recommend it, but it's possible there are some variations where white castles queenside. Alright. So instead, Günzburg plays h3. And now we have the classic sort of expression. the best way to meet a wing attack is to strike in the center. Very surprising move by Chigorin here. He just hits the center with d5. Before white is able to settle in. What about this? Mainly, bishop takes c6, b takes c6, knight takes e5. We have different options. I mean, obviously, even like rook e8 is possible. Knight takes d4, queen d7. We're definitely getting this pawn back on e4. Or you can play queen e8, or you can play pawn takes pawn. But I don't want to trade queens in this type of position where we have a bad structure. I'm curious what the oracle says. Let's see what the engine says. Okay, white should maintain his strong point. Computer doesn't like taking on c6. Should just play like knight to g3. The problem with Gunsberg was that he had this very artificial plan of playing for like g4. I mean, essentially he's playing the black, what is it called? The Black Lion? He's been hanging out with Simon Williams too much. Trying to play the Black Lion with white. I mean, this stuff... Actually, one of our regulars here on Tuesdays, Aldisto, plays like this with the white pieces. They'll do like g4, knight g3 against everything. So he's strong pointing e4. This looks fine. b5 anyway. You could have just done that first, by the way. I mean, if you're worried about any of this, you could have just played b5 first. Bishop b3. I'm not even sure where the bishop should go, by the way. To b3 or c2. b5, bishop e3, d5. You could just play this move order. It looks like a Tivyakov moral attack or something. d5, queen e2, b5. Now bishop c2. And white's playing the Black Lion. So this is an interesting position. Where if I was black, I would have to stop and think for quite a while. Because I would think you'd want to keep the tension here in general. But I see what Chigorin does here is amazing. Later we'll see Reshevsky and people do this kind of strategy on the white side of the King's Indian. Saruwan. For example, Yasser Saruwan playing a game in like 2000, I remember, with the white side of a King's Indian where he does d5, takes on c6, and then plays b5. So we play d4. It's about, like, we might have this idea, take, play b4, and then gain control of the d4 square. This is the plan, to try to grab control of the dark squares. And if white does this move, for example, I mean, I would think that would be a normal move for white here, but do we take this way, where our knight can't go to d4? Do we take this way and take back with the queen, so we maintain control of d4? That's what I figure Chigorin is going to do, because this is, sorry guys, this is similar to the game. He's going to latch on to the d4, and play for control of the dark squares. I'm curious though what white's best move is here after d4. Probably he should just maintain the position. I mean, knight g3. His next move is horrific. I can't even begin to say how much I hate g4. That was white's plan. But I think that he should probably just bring the knight to g3. Do we have a problem here? Maybe. It looks like knight g3 is not that bad, but I hate this move, g4. c4 is not an option. g4 is horrible. I mean, this is really where white lost the game. He's wasting time. His king's still in the center of the board. He thought he could get away with it, playing the lion's jaw or whatever. What's it called? The black lion. What's the lion's jaw? Why do I always say that? Queen d6. Dark square play. Now white just basically died. He just like rolls over and dies. So when you play g4, what's the plan? To play knight g3, right? Now we have stuff like this. Bouncing the knight over to c5, maybe? But I'm curious, what do we do exactly after knight g3? If white plays the best move. Why did he not play knight g3 after all that? Was there something about this that white saw? I mean, was it a sacrifice? Is he afraid of knight takes g4? Check out what he played. He played this. What? You just moved your knight to f1. Now you're going back to d2? This is ridiculous. So if he plays knight g3, what is black going to do? Knight d7? And this is a normal move. What else do we have? Do we have this type of stuff ever? For example, take b4. Doesn't look that great. Actually, the engine likes it best. Wow. I didn't think it was that great. Takes, b4. But that's the Sarawan plan that I was telling you guys about. Reshevsky Sarawan strategic plan. It's all about taking over the d4 square. You're undermining the d4 square in the center, and black takes over. Like, imagine if you played this or something. Black could go knight d7, knight d7, knight c5, knight e6, and knight d4, or knight f4. This is +2. That's how bad white's position is. It's +2. If you try to lock it up with c4. Yeah, can't black go for what? Go for the c-pawn? Yeah, I mean, you can play like this or something. But he has time to defend. It's better just to play strategically and get control of that square. But okay. This is a terrible move. I mean, knight on bd2. It seems like he wasted a massive amount of time. Now just developing. cd4 question mark. White didn't have to do that. And he just like gives up the d4 square. Knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4. And this is not a flashy game by Chigorin. Now check it out. Knight f3, queen b4 check. He has to play king f1. And then queen e6. b3. c5, locking down. It's like a Marazzi now. Bishop e2. Knight d7, and now not only does white have this bishop on c2, which Botvinnik would be pretty happy about for black 50 years later, but Chigorin gets to exercise this maneuver that was played against me by a Russian IM, Igor Polovodyan, back in the World Open. He must have been happy to do that. You know, knight g5, knight b8. That's the worst. The knight b8, knight c6, knight d4. But what Chigorin shows here is his understanding of minor pieces, and also this position. Strategically, it doesn't matter that he's giving up his white square bishop. He has this reputation for loving knights versus bishops, but this position is just a clear example of a good position for black strategically. Takes with the f-pawn. Clearing the way for the f-file, and white is dead. I love this acerbate maneuver. Our VIP here, acerbate, he learned from Chigorin himself. Rook a7, rook hf1, rook af7, f3, and knight c6. This is not a tactical game. It's completely strategic. He wins control of d4. White has no bishop. And now watch him improve his worst piece. Queen d2, rook f4, rook a d1. Here I would start thinking about bishop f6. There it is. And now black has a complete lock on the dark squares, and white has an extra pawn on c2. Now the problem is breaking in. How can we break in? We need the h5 pawn. Alright. This is sad, man. I mean, that's sad. I would just want to resign right now. Total positional domination by black. It's devastating. This is just absolutely crushing. h5 breaking through. And now white can't allow rook f2 check, obviously. So he has to take with the h pawn. And now rook h1. I mean, maybe white could have played rook h1, but he's facing rook takes here. No, he can't leave the guardianship of f3. Queen g5, king h3, rook f7. It's terrible. Now he finally gets some threat against something. Queen h6, king g2, rook h7. It's like a King's Indian. One of the first King's Indians. Now obviously if rook c5, we have bishop e7. So he has to try rook h1. And everything's okay, right? He's got pressure on c5. He's covered the h-file. f3 is protected. Black doesn't have any threats. For the first time, Günzburg probably thought he was doing all right. Bam. It's just over. I guess it's just over after rook takes f3. That move was the denouement. A minute of silence for Europe from Gita B. Commemoration will take place today, Wednesday, March 24th at 12 noon CET. Thank you for that announcement, Gita B. Worthwhile. Acerbate, you're missing the point. We're talking about Europe, man. It's a commemoration for coronavirus in Europe, dude. I think you should try to understand what it's about. All the people that have died in Europe. We've been suffering from this since over a year. We're not talking about when the coronavirus started. This is not a conspiracy theory issue. Try to understand what we're talking about. All right. Rook takes f3. Queen f3. Schieberspieler, what's up? So this devastating combination. Rook takes f3 ends the game. Chigorin. Rook takes, queen d2 check, that's the point. So we can't go up, and if we go back, there's rook f7 at the very least. Also, this bishop is hanging. So this is the only defense, right? We don't get skewered by rook f7. That was a nice combination, but still, what do we do? What do we do? Bishop f2. Beautiful. So this is what makes Chigorin truly great. His ability to combine excellent tactics with strategic play. He's all the full deal. Like, he's not a one-dimensional player. Bijak, I'm not getting into political discussions today. We're just on a short stream where I'm talking about Chigorin. I wish we hadn't had this little distraction. Bishop f2 check. Knight d4. Bishop takes d4. Bishop takes d4 is impossible. We've got to grab this rook on c1. King e2. Rook takes. Bishop takes f2. And we win the exchange. It's a nice tactical game. I want to get to the next one. We're just up. We're just up material. Check. Game over. Okay, very nice strategic game and a nice tactical sequence at the end. I just want to check with the engine. Rook takes f3. It's over after rook takes f3. It was over anyway, though. He was going to get mated on the h-file. It's like basically Botvinnik, early Botvinnik type of game, where the positional advantage was so great that it's just a question of finishing him off with a tactical blow. In this case, it was rook takes f3. But if you don't find that move, I mean, life might be a little bit difficult to break through. All right. The next game is from the World Championship return match, 1892. Chigorin versus Steinitz. Havana, 1892. It's weird to say that. Sheaver Spiller, good to see you. Yeah, you haven't been around lately. Guys, only a short stream today. I will be, oh, by the way, reminder for everybody, tomorrow night is our subscriber stream, and I don't have any games, so there's only 2 games in the list. Astrobate and others, if you intend to submit a game for tomorrow night's stream, please do so. I've only got Satamasa and Yabadis so far for game submissions for Thursday evening. Tomorrow night, 6:30 CET yet. We're doing our subscriber stream. But Sheeper Spiller, it'd be good to have you around. We missed you for the tournament yesterday. We had a good tournament yesterday. Do you know who the Butcher 1984 is? Some Hungarian, like, 2200 player. Took down our Tuesday tournament. Butcher got 8 out of 9. Very good result. Princess Chess, welcome. Alright guys, so this is game 3. Chigorin versus Steinitz. I was confused because, oh, he was a real Butcher. That's funny. Perunovic, the Grandmaster from Serbia, had some name, the Butcher, somewhere on a chess site. Oh, you mean he killed people? I don't want to know about that. Alright. I was hoping it was just animals. I don't want to know. Yeah, Perunovic. He killed people on a chessboard. E4, E5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. This is Chigorin versus Steinitz World Championship. Okay, bishop c4, bishop c5, the Evans Gambit. Okay, this was played in 1892. The Evans Gambit was still being played. What are you talking about? I am. You can't be an I am, dude. He's like 2600. Are you crazy? The guy can't be an IM. I'm sorry, B-Jack. There's no 2600 IMs. Bishop takes b4. Oh, I'm thinking of Milos Perunovic. That's it. So there's two of them. I'm sorry. So I got them confused. That's my bad. Okay, so he's an IM. There's two, and they both start with M. Oh, the Miodrag is the butcher. So I got them confused. I thought that Milos was the butcher. I got them mixed up. Yeah. I didn't realize there was two guys. I thought they were the same person. So Milos, okay. So the Grandmaster's not the butcher. He's more of a surgeon. Anyway, all right, back to the topic at hand here. This is Chigorin playing white against Grandmasters are not butchers, right? Chigorin was playing Steinitz. C3, Bishop A5, Evans Gambit, Castles D6, D4, and Bishop G4. Well, I didn't know that, B-Doc. So Bishop G4. I'm always skeptical of this move. Anytime I'm seeing an E4, E5 opening, it seems like Bishop G5 is wrong. Developing the Queen's Bishop, the piece that's usually developed last. I suspect Steinitz is making a mistake here. He's leaving B7 open, F7. But he's up a pawn and he's willing to give up the bishop. I don't think that Bishop G4 can be right, though. It is the best move. Wow. It's surprising to me that this is the best move. He's willing to give up that white square bishop. But it seems like Black's always going to have counterplay. Interesting line. Castles, D6, D4. You know, I mean, I guess D4 is more popular, right? What Chigorin's doing is delayed D4, giving Black more options. So Bishop G4. I still don't feel like that's the safest move. He can go here, for example. I mean, isn't this known? Like takes. Isn't this like Kogan versus Anand or something? Queen D8, Knight D8, Knight takes E5. It's like Arthur Kogan versus Anand game. Black's just fine. Feingold said that Steinitz played terrible against Chigorin. Well, obviously Feingold must be a big fan of Chigorin. Playing the Chigorin defense. Like, no one plays the Chigorin defense at the GM level. I mean, Ben's been playing it like way before he became the 40-year-old Grandmaster. But so I think this is like established safe way for Black to play. But Steinitz maybe wanted more. Thus Bishop G4. Of course, that wasn't known as much back then, but today it's known. Bishop E6 is safe. Okay, now it gets interesting. Bishop B5, which feels wrong, moving the bishop a second time. I'm going to turn off the oracle. E takes D4. C takes D4. You see, this I don't like. Giving up the center for Black. And now Bishop D7. And that's sort of an admission of defeat in a way. No, I like Steinitz. I respect Steinitz. You have to appreciate great defenders, I think. A lot of Steinitz' great games are, probably Feingold doesn't respect the defensive genius of Steinitz. Bishop d7, Bishop b2, and now I think White has probably got amazing compensation here for the sacrificed pawn. Knight on ce7. It's a counterintuitive move. This wasn't, Steinitz did play some bad games. He played a lot of games, and many of them are bad. Many of them are great. You don't get a great game every time. But Black looks very passive here. I'm sorry, Knight on c to e7. This looks incredibly passive for Black. No way, I'm getting into this. Bishop g4, bishop back to d7, knight back to e7. Now, I would seriously consider keeping the bishop on the board with like bishop d3 here. White has textbook compensation. Someone on Sound, one of our viewers I was thinking of when I saw this game, he likes the Evans in this kind of like long-winded, not so, it's not superfluous, but a sort of not so obvious long-term compensation. Just basically more comfortable development, space advantage. The opponent is cramped, but he's up a pawn. But what can he do with it? White is hugely better here in a practical game. But White decides to exchange pieces. I mean, technically it's Black's good bishop. I'm on the fence about this. I really think I would pull the bishop back to d3. Computer likes the exchange. This is amazing. I think that he played the engine's line. Seriously, this is insane. He literally played Stockfish variation. Bishop d7, queen d7, and knight a3. No, I mean the pawns are good fluid like this. Though I don't want to see it get locked up necessarily, like d5, e5. In fact, you would think that Black, would like to play d5 now. The problem is knight e5. The queen a4 check will punish that bishop on a5 and the king on e8. He can't lock the center up and try to close it. Maybe. I mean, there's also this. If anything, in fact, Honigberger, d5 might be. Yeah, check it out. I would have played bishop d3. Principally keeping the pieces on the board with more space. But, yeah, maybe he spoke to ancient aliens. He had a visitation. Bishop takes d7, queen d7, knight a3. Yeah, the center is amazing, but I love the center where it is. Now knight h6, knight c4, bishop b6. And now a4. And again, if you try to do something fancy with d5, you're going to lose to knight e5 and a5. So he has to watch out. I don't know. After a4. But let's stop here for a second. I've got to go in about 20 minutes, guys and girls. Yeah, no, it's very possible you could have a game where they had almost perfect play, even back in 1895. So here Steinitz played d5. Sorry. He did play c6. Okay, this is right. No, I don't see a better move than c6. Do you guys see anything other than c6 here? a5 or something looks horrible. Destroying your pawn structure. a6. You got to admit, c6 weakens the d6 square, though. Maybe Black should consider another option. Is it possible to just allow this? How bad is it? See what the engine says. It feels that c6 is slightly better. a6 is the better option among a6 and a5 according to Stockfish 11. Slightly less weaknesses, I guess. Okay, c6, the problem is this is weakened, and that's what happens. e5, now Hanischberger's move. Clearly with the idea of getting in here, bishop a3. I wonder if black could just castle here. How crazy would it be to simply castle? I mean, there's a lot of problems. A lot of problems with this bishop on b6, for example. I mean, even if you get to this stage, you're going to have huge problems with your pieces getting boxed in and stuff like 95. I mean, it does look... Optically, it looks like a nightmare to even consider something like allowing him to take on d6. So here, check, king f8. And now, I mean, it's basically a really good wing gambit or something against the Sicilian. Black's king's on f8. The knight is entrenched on d6. Great compensation. Bishop a3. King g8. Rook b1. Totally standard positional play. Knight f5, getting knight off the side of the board. And now knight f7, and I think Steinitz criticized this move as like an incorrect combination. Can't white play a5? What's up, Morales? Morales, guys, don't forget tomorrow night, Thursday, subscriber stream. If you'd like to submit a game for analysis amongst the subscribers, please do so. We don't have too many games yet this week. So, I mean, seriously, we have to consider a5. He can't take here, because then two pieces would be hanging. If bishop takes a5, rook takes b7, and then it looks like white has excellent comp. I mean, this is even more interesting, right? I mean, if you do bishop c7, now we really have e6. Don't we? I mean, I'm looking at beautiful variations like this. Maybe it doesn't even work. You have queen d8. I don't know. It's crazy. Let's see what the oracle says. a5 wins. Oh, alright. I admit, though, I didn't think it was that clear. Bishop c7. It's winning. Wow, rook takes b7. What did I play? No, I don't even remember what I played here for black. What did we say? I don't remember what my suggestion was. What did I say here for black? We've got a line in there. e6 right away, okay. It's white's move, duh. Forgot it was white's move. So e6 was wrong. Alright. I just want to play that move too much. See, this isn't so easy. This is the problem with just taking Stockfish evaluations and be like, well, that's a winning position. Like, it's not that easy to win this. You know, you've got to just build up. There's no immediate breakthrough. Queen b1. I mean, not an easy move to find. Rook e1. That doesn't look like it does that much. You know, you're looking for like a devastating combination that's not there. I was on the right track, but still, it's hard to find a way to finish black off here. It's like +6 and no obvious win. Thanks, Bijak, for sending in a game. So he plays knight takes f7. Let's see if this is sound. It works. I mean, you know, Steinitz says it wasn't best, but I'm not sure the other line is easy to find at all. Knight f7, king f7, e6 check. I mean, this is easier to play because it's more forcing. I don't think that Steinitz has a real good case for criticizing White's play here. You have to take with the king, otherwise there's a fork. And now you're just clearly marooned in the center for the rest of your life on e6. Knight e5 cutting off the retreat square. It's an epic attacking game. When White maintains the initiative, I think that's important in a practical sense. And now queen d6, excuse me, queen d6 is impossible. Queen e8, I want to say, maybe. He wanted to keep e7 protected. I think that black is probably lost here, though. I mean, objectively, queen c7 was the best move. For some reason, very much better. It keeps the rooks open. He didn't want to block his bishop, I guess. But you do see these rooks have better mobility. But I think most people would be demoralized here with black and just want to give up. With the king on e6, you figure you're dead anyway. It's hard to play optimal defense when you think you're just dead. Queen c8, rook e1, and that's it, man. That's it. Dead in the water. This is Astrobait. This game reminded me of you, honestly. I knew you would like this one. Rook e1, king f6. It looks like a king hunt. Astrobait would appreciate. Queen h5, #1 move. Playing for a beautiful check there on f7. Obviously, this is the best defense. And now bishop e7 check. Opens up new vistas. Perhaps the defender misses this move. Just kind of counterintuitive. Giving up a good attacker. But now here, knight g6 check. What about knight takes? Obviously. Is it this? Is it knight g4? I mean, I don't know. Queen h4, g5. For example, queen h6 check, knight g6. It's possible this rook plays a decisive role. Believe it or not. Rook b3. h4 is good, but rook b3 is winning. Like, this line is not that easy to find. At least if it was like a tactics puzzle or something. The best move is king g7. Just being down a piece. Not a no-brainer, right? Wait a minute, he's not down a piece here. Yeah, he could have played king g7, queen g5. Actually, I mean, this is a far better try. Queen g5. I mean, the problem is this is happening. Eventually, we're going to break through on the other side. But let's say queen e6 walks into some kind of discovery, but what? Probably knight g4. That's tough though. King g7 would have been a better try. Knight takes g6 check. Here, and he just takes the material. Yeah, I mean, this maneuver is classic. He's up the exchange. It's over. You just take here, probably. there's a check here. So he resigned. If queen takes, queen f8. Okay, Morales says, by the way, I like your thematic tournament idea. Do not substitute the Tuesday tournament. Okay. I'll take your suggestion. Alright, this was a great game. And then lastly, I've got 10 minutes left, guys. Chigorin versus Mortimer. This is our last submission for today. Just for fun. Steinitz variation of the King's Gambit. Or is it? E4, E5, knight C3, knight C6. Does this transpose to a Steinitz King's Gambit? F4, E takes F4. So it would be F4 takes, knight C3, knight C6. D4, damn it, why does my mouse do that? D4, queen H4 check, king E2. So if we played traditional King's Gambit move order here, it can transpose if black plays knight C6 in this position. The problem is, knight C6 may not be a great move. It's the best scoring move, ironically, it's the best scoring move on Lichess, non-bullet games. But the computer hates it. Just goes to show you what garbage the average game on the site is. Stockfish literally hates knight c6. It's not even a good move at all. And black has its best score in those games with knight c6. I mean, these are not master level players for the most part. There's a few mixed in there, but this is a much more common move. I would imagine queen h5 is very standard. Steinitz himself has games like this. Alright, but anyway, it's all for fun. So, this last game is just a fun submission against Mortimer. Knight c3, knight c6, f4, takes, d4, check, king e2. And now check it out. d5, counter pawn back, counter sacrifice. E takes d5, bishop g4 check, knight f3, castles queen side. Black sacrifices a piece. You got to give credit to Mortimer. Wasn't a bad player. D takes c6. Now he sacks a piece with knight f6. The engine says that white is clearly better here. But it's certainly a very fun, practical try for black. This is a natural developing move. So check it out now. Queen e1. I know this looks insane, but the computer says that white is clearly better. I mean, white is up a piece, and he needs to defend. Queen e1. Queen e1 is so insane, it's out of control. I just had to show you guys this. He sacks his queen. Rook e8, king d2. Now, hold on a second. Right, I mean the queen is hanging. We have to do this. Queen f2. Bishop e4. Bishop d3, guarding against knight e4. And then rook e3. And it looks like black has a really active piece sacrifice going on here. Engine is just like, will not have it. It just says that white black is lost. It's a nice rook you got there on e3, but it's not enough, according to the computer. Takes, king d8. Now watch what happened. Knight e5, rook e2 check. Guys, I gotta go in 5 minutes. Thanks for joining me. Beautiful play here by Chigorin. I want to see if this is sound. I haven't checked it with the engine. Obviously, if you play bishop takes rook, you get knight e4 check, and you have to lose your queen. So he plays queen e2, bishop e2, bishop e2, hitting the queen. And this is coming here. It's certainly a romantic game. Not sure if he missed it. It's like winning for white, apparently. The point is that he probably like planned all of this. Knight e4 check, king d3, white is winning all the way. Queen is hanging. Knight f2 check, king c4. It almost looks like the whole game was composed. Queen h6. But the bishop is hanging on b4. It's still winning. Bishop f3. And this is the point. There's this devastating threats. Knight d7, mate, acerbate. Power of the bishop on f3 and the pawn on b7 and the threat of mate on d7, and it's just unbelievable. So he plays c5 to give his king like a good hiding place. Check. King c7, and there's another problem. Bam. Oops, I missed that. And now there's a fork on d5. Check. And we just get it back. Knight takes f4, knight h1. And white's just winning. It's over. I don't know, it was sort of miraculous, but it looks like this queen sacrifice is okay. Knight e5 is actually the best move. And black should play rook takes e5, d e5, queen e5, and be down a rook, according to the engine. After queen e5, rook e1, queen d6. We're down a rook, but white's rook is on a1, so it's not so easy. The whole queen sacrifice is sound. Rook e2, bishop e2. It's unbelievable. This is even a mistake. He couldn't resist like forking him. And black is just lost. Anyway, guys, I gotta go. Thanks for joining me here for our Wednesday Retro Master stream. A short stream dedicated to Chigorin. I will see all of you tomorrow night. Thanks everybody for being subscribers, for supporting the stream if you can. Submit your games for tomorrow night at 6:30 CET. And next week we go to CST, summertime coming up. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you all tomorrow night. Bye-bye.